Hey, and welcome on back to Workshop Wednesday. I'm Kelsey Meyer. Thanks for joining me today in my workshop. And today we are going to do a pattern hack. Well, it's kind of almost more of an upcycle because I'm going to use this garment that I've already created. This is one of the Kelsey tops that I've made. I made it in a live workshop that I taught where we actually get to take your body's measurements and then draft a pattern, and then we sew the top. And I wanted to demonstrate on a knit fabric in that class because I had a couple students working with knit, and also show them that you can actually sew knit garments with just a regular sewing machine. Today I wanted to look at this top because I love this fabric. It's a little bit of a heavier knit. It's called a scuba fabric. It's so soft. It's actually a really nice green color, kind of a foresty green. It looks really dark in the camera, and I realized right before I started shooting this video that I'm wearing like all green today, and I'm working on a green piece. And then I thought, you know what, Friday is St. Patrick's Day, so it kind of works out perfectly. Green is my favorite color, so there you go. And yeah, so since this material is a little bit heavier, I was like, oh, this would be so comfy if it was a long sleeve and if it came down a little bit longer. And I was thinking with the extension, I wanted to do it kind of 2 layers. So it's going to be a really wide band, and just drop it down over my hips, keep my low back nice and warm and toasty. And so let's take a look at the extra pieces we would need to cut out for this. So this is the basic Kelsey top, how it's laid out, the style. And if you think that sounds really neat, just taking your own body's measurements and sewing a garment for you, then I'll pop the link for the Kelsey top workshop class in the description box below here, so you can go and get yourself a copy of that and make your own top. That class does include a PDF worksheet where we go through your measurements and figure out your working measurements, and I really walk you through step by step from start to finish. And when I look at the top here on the table, the first thing that I need to do is unstitch my hems on both the length of the garment and on the sleeves, so I have my full length, and then decide how long or how much extra I need to add to both the sleeves and the hem. Now that we've dropped the hem, I can just check that there aren't really any holes. Sometimes knit garments will get holes where they were stitched, and I also want to make sure that the crease is going to come out nicely so that you can't see that there was a hem here. If so, then I would just shorten up the sleeves and then add a longer piece on it, but it's looking really good. I'm just going to take it over to the ironing board and press it. Okay, so it's looking really great now that I've pressed it, and I took the opportunity to measure the length that I want to add, and I'm going to do 10 inches to the arm, and 6 inches at the bottom. Again, I want to do it folded over so it's kind of double thick and extra cozy on both of these kind of hem extensions. So I'm going to cut the piece 12 inches. I've got this extra seam allowance that I've dropped down from the hem, so I'm not going to add extra for the seam allowance because I'm just doing a really narrow seam attachment, probably like 3/8 or something like that. So I've got that extra length already on the top that can accommodate for both seams. So it's going to be just shy of 6 inches and just shy of 10 inches, but it will still be long enough. And then I also thought, you know what, I'm going to gather up just a little bit of a ruffle right in the center front. It's going to kind of torque my side seam a little bit towards the front. If I was going to do that in this design from the get-go, then I would have kind of spread it out and added that extra length so that when I've gathered it, I still have balanced side seams. But since this top is stretchy and kind of loose fitting, it's not really going to throw it off that the back of the top is just slightly larger. So I'm going to make that band just a little bit narrower for the bottom. So I have this fabric here. It has a little bit of a funny cut from the last thing that I made. So I'm going to just get one sleeve kind of out of this area and then cut my long band and then get the other sleeve on kind of parallel to the selvage, so I'm hopefully not using up too much fabric. So I'm just gonna mark the width. I'm doing a 5-inch sleeve, and since I'm folding it over, I'm just gonna mark it at 20 inches and then take my nice little square, double check that it's running straight. So I'm just cutting out rectangular pieces, so they're not going to taper in any which way, but it keeps it a little bit easier for the pattern drafting. And I think I'm going to like just the square attachment as well without needing a taper at all. Okay, so here, and I need 12. Get these kind of cut out, and then I'll do just use this as my pattern for the second sleeve. So I'm just going to fold this up because I only need a single layer for the second sleeve. Okay, here we go. We have our pieces. Now that I have the pieces cut out, I'm just gonna go ahead and close the sleeve. So right down the arm of the sleeve, and I'm gonna close the band in a circle so that when I fold it in half and do that double layer, it will have the seam allowance in between the two layers so that my sleeve and the band will both look really nice and clean on the inside and the outside. Here we yeah, we've got our pieces prepped. You might have noticed that I just used my regular sewing machine with a lock stitch to sew these sleeves. And I thought, you know what, since I used the lock stitch on the top, I might as well just keep it consistent throughout the piece and just see how it goes. I know that with this seam here underneath the sleeve, it will be perfectly fine with the amount of stretch that I've got, and same with the sleeve on the band here. It could cause a problem here where it attaches to the top. I might get, you know, that snapping sound when I get in and out, stretching it over my shoulders. So I might end up having to go back and just close this with a serger or another stitch that has some stretch to it. I'll keep you posted on that. As for the sleeves, again, it's not gonna have a problem in the wear just because it's not gonna get a whole lot of stretch. It might feel a little bit restricting on my arm because it's kind of right about where my elbow is. So it is a little bit of a wider area in my arm itself. So this could be more of kind of a comfort thing that I might want to go back and use the serger on. But as I mentioned, I'm just sticking with a straight lock stitch just because that's what I used on the rest of the top. So let's get this together so I can try it on. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a little bit of stitching here so that I can gather it up. So I've just set my stitch length a little bit longer. I'm just going to stitch right across the center front here. And if you're thinking it's kind of weird to use a regular lock stitch for knits, it really isn't. It only has, you know, the disadvantage that it's not always as stretchy as your fabric. The one thing you do want to make sure of, though, is that you are using the correct needle. So you do want to use a needle that's for knits or jersey fabrics, just so that you don't damage the fabric. If you don't, you'll most likely be breaking some of the threads in your knit, and then you'll get holes right along your stitch line. And that's really not something we want. So definitely use the right needle, but you can always play around with your stitch options and see what works best for the current project you're working on. So I'll just gather this up a little bit and give myself a little bit of a ruffle in the front. This fabric is so fantastic to work with. I just love the feel of it, and it lays so nice. You might have noticed that I didn't need any pins when I closed the straight seams on the bands. It almost like it sticks together, has a little bit of a nap to it. And I'm going to throw in a couple pins here just because I want to make sure that I've spaced it out properly. So, what do you think? I had to just quickly pop it on, and good news, I didn't hear any breaking threads, so I think this is going to be fine. It feels okay in the arms as well. It's not a problem. It's a little bit more fitted right through here, but that's totally fine. And I like that I can just like fold up these sleeves too and have like 3/4 length. I like long or 3/4 length sleeve in the winter time. Just have a little bit more coziness, and this fabric, oh, It just feels amazing. It's so, so soft. And of course, being green, it's my favorite color. So there you go. Now, if you want your own version of this top, don't forget that down in the description, you can pick up a copy of the Kelsey Top Sew Along so that you can make your very own Kelsey top to your body's measurements. And I've also got some other videos here on YouTube with other ideas for doing a button placket in the back and fun design style adjustments that you can do with your Kelsey top. And if you're not already on my email list, the link is in the description box as well for that, where you can sign up and I'll be sending you extra bonus content each week, as well as you'll be the first to know about live classes I'm offering. You can also contact me and find out more about my club membership if you would like my help with your sewing projects. Then shoot me an email, send me a message, and pop over to my Facebook group and let me know what you're sewing there as well.